What's going on there, everyone? Well, this story is actually from yesterday, but I got a little bit bogged down in adulting stuff, so this story and stories like this just break my heart because it's something we should generally not be going through. You know, parents used to actually parent their children. Because children are malleable and generally don't know anything. It's our jobs as adults to teach kids what they should and shouldn't do and what reality is. And when it comes to these types of situations, if one of the parents aren't basing their lives in reality, I feel so bad for the children. I feel so bad for the kids. Because they're going to be, they're already being set up for failure. But let's get into the story a little bit, and then we'll move on to a couple studies that I want to discuss. GOP state representative wants to make it a felony for doctors to perform gender transition surgeries on minors. And I think they should go a bit further with this, honestly, and I think they should it should be illegal not only to do transition surgeries, but it should also be illegal to mess with kids' hormones and to give them hormone blockers and whatnot. It's not good. There's hardly any medical research, like good medical research, that shows that this is even safe. Which it's clearly not. Whenever, like I've stated before in other videos about this situation, and ask bodybuilders that do steroids what manipulating your hormones can do to your body, the dangers of what it can do to your body, and you'll find out soon that cancers, this, that, and the other. There's so many things that can go wrong. Do you want that for your children? I don't. A state representative in Georgia is in the midst of drafting a bill that would make it a felony for doctors to help minors obtain gender transitions. Representative Jenny Earhart, a Republican who represents Powder Springs, announced her sponsorship of the Vulnerable Child Protection Act by way of a press release issue on Wednesday. The bill would prohibit doctors from performing gender transition surgeries on minors or prescribing medications. Okay, so it is in there. Okay, cool beans. It wasn't in the headline, so I didn't know if they were going to add the medications, the hormone blockers and stuff to it. It says they are. Awesome. I'm completely for that. We're talking about children that can't get a tattoo or smoke a cigar or a cigarette in the state of Georgia, but they can be castrated and get sterilized, Earnhardt told the Atlantic Journal-Constitution. Earnhardt has said the timing of her proposal is no accident. I believe the time is now to strike while the iron is hot, she told the Marietta Daily Journal. There is an alarming trend in this country, as evidenced by stories we've seen in the news media, and I have received many concerning phone calls and emails from constituents and Georgians across the state that are concerned about the trend in treating the issue of gender dysphoria. The Georgia lawmaker is likely alluding to the case of Jeffrey Younger, a Texas dad fighting to stop what he claims is his ex-wife's attempt to subject their son James to a gender transition against his will. When it comes to that case breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because that's just a little boy. And you can see that his mom is the one who wants him to do this. It's his mom. She's a left-wing progressive activist type. She's doing this for her own social credit score, her own social clout. It's pathetic, and it's an outrage. A public outcry erupted last week following various new legal developments in the case. Earhart is targeting Georgia physicians who perform gender surgeries on minors, and that her bill is not about adults changing their gender after the age of consent. And I agree with that also. Once you are grown and can actually form relatively decent opinions about things, and you know reality a little bit, then you can make your decision. But kids that are as young as some of these 3, come on. They can't make no decisions like this because they don't know what they're talking about. Even if you try to explain it, their brains don't know how to process what you just told them. It's sad. The psychological damage this does to innocent children must come to an end. This legislation makes such abusive actions criminal, she told the Daily Journal. And I just have to agree with her. Because these activists and all this, they're not thinking of the long-term ramifications of a child going through this. They're just not. There's so many things that the child themselves don't even probably factor into any of this. The social impacts. I mean, don't get me started on the impacts. Health, society, freaking. I mean, it's sad. But let's get into some of these studies. I'm going to talk about this just a little bit. Harrowing statistics from a study recently published by the American Academy of Pediatrics revealed alarming levels of attempted suicide among transgender youth, with the highest rates among transgender boys and non-binary youths. The findings emphasize the urgency of building welcoming and safe communities for LGBTQ young people, particularly those transgender youth. That building a welcoming and safe community is, you're putting the people back. You're putting them in a bubble still. Do you not see that's still dangerous? Just because they're in a safe space, so to say, doesn't mean they're going to be able to stay there forever. They still got to go out into the real world, people. More than half of the transgender male teens who participated in the survey reported attempting suicide in their lifetime, while 29.9% of transgender female teens said they've attempted suicide. Among non-binary youth, 41.8% of respondents stated they had attempted suicide at some part in their lives. Seems to be a pattern. Many transgender young people experience family rejection, bullying, and harassment, or feel unsafe for simply being who they are, all of which can be added risk factors for suicide. Earlier this year, HRC released its 2018 LGBTQ Youth report, which detailed similarly alarming experiences, but also significant perseverance among LGBTQ young people in the face of daunting challenges. You know what? I blame the parents. And I'm at this moment, I'm starting to blame society a little bit as a whole. Because we're not seeing this for what it is, which is a mental condition. This is something that's not right in these people's heads. Like I said, once they're an adult, I don't care anymore. You know, you're an adult, do what you want. Go for it, you know, if that's what you want to do, or get help. If you've waited till adulthood to even address the situation, you already got a problem. Like, serious problem. It's going to be hard. But as a kid, we should probably be trying to talk them out of this for the most part, you know, because they are still malleable. And it will give them, inevitably, a better quality of life than what we're seeing out of these youths that are transgender and whatnot, because the stats are very disturbing. HRC and researchers at the University of Connecticut found that 77% of LGBTQ, I'm just going to say LGBT because the Q is kind of redundant to me, teenagers surveyed report feeling depressed or down over the past week. 95% of LGBT youth reported trouble sleeping at night. LGBTQ youth of color and transgender teenagers experience unique challenges and elevated stress. Only 11% of youth of color surveyed believe their racial or ethnic group is regarded positively in the U.S. I don't really care. And I think that's most people just don't care. The only reason that anybody is saying anything really about transgender people is because of the transgender activists are kind of psychotic. You know, they're kind of crazy. And we've seen instances of many transgender groups trying to fight back against other more radical transgender groups, saying, hey, you're hurting us all. You're hurting our cause. Well, you know, you got to police your own sometimes. And over 50% of trans and gender expansive youth say they can never use school restrooms that align with their gender identity. Well, if y'all didn't make up that there was 70-something genders, we wouldn't have that problem. You know, male and female, that's about the size of it. Sorry, everything else is nonsense. I don't care what you say. I just can't get down with it. It's BS. What, 70-something? Come on, man. When there's a gender that says you're more you're more of a space object than you are a human, you got some big mental problems, bud. I hate to tell you. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I live in reality, and I think you should too. You'll be a lot safer and happier, probably. More than 70% report feelings of worthlessness and hopelessness in the past week. Only 26% say they always feel safe in their school classrooms. And just 5% say of their teachers and school staff are supportive of LGBT people. 67% report that they've heard family members making negative comments about the LGBTQ. Well, the main thing I could see is people shouldn't be, generally, if you're an LGBT person, to each their own. Leave kids alone. Leave the youth alone. Leave them out of it. Because, you know, some of these kids are just generally confused. Some of these kids are being egged on by a parent. So they're actually being manipulated into doing this, whether they think it's good or not. Because they don't know what to think because they're children. And children like to please their adults. You know, when a child makes one of their parents happy by doing anything, the kid's going to want to do that more often because it's making their parents happy. You see how this is all just a big circle. And the parents are the ones in general screwing this up because they're not being parents. I don't blame the kids. I understand why a lot of them are confused because they're having media and weird groups of society sitting there saying, "Oh no, it's fine. Do this, do this. Oh, that's completely normal if you want to inject yourself with this to pretty much chemically castrate yourself. That's normal. Go for it." Yeah, that's not normal, and that's not a good thing to be telling kids. But let's pop over to this other site, and then I'll wrap it up because I know it's probably getting a little long now. Just this one paragraph I'd like to highlight. The phenomenon of transgender children growing out of their transgender identity by the time they are adolescents or adults is called desistance by gender researchers. For decades, follow-up studies of transgender kids have shown that a substantial majority, anywhere from 65 to 94%, some would call that quite substantial, eventually ceased to identify as transgender. Thank you. And that should be one of the most important things to walk away with. These are phases. Kids grow out of them. There's kids who want to be astronauts, this, that, and the other. There are kids that want to be transformers. Should we let them go through their youth thinking that they can be a transformer? No. Because it's not reality. It's just not. It's not something that can ever happen. Just like someone trying to change their gender. It can't actually happen. It's all nonsense. I understand you might want to look like a girl or something, but do know that all the surgery and all the hormones in the world, it's all it's gonna do is change your appearance. On the inside, you're still gonna be whatever you were born as. And you will always go through life knowing that. And what is that gonna do to your mental psyche? What is that gonna do? knowing that you can never be what you think you are. It's gonna that can eat away at people. I'm not sure exactly what the best course of action is. I would say to these people, go get help. You know, there's nothing bad about it. There's nothing bigoted or anything like that. If you say, you know what, I realize I got an issue and I gotta work this issue out. Go talk to somebody. Go talk to different people. Get many different opinions. Because in academia and all that, left-wing opinions are gonna run rampant, and you gotta make sure, in order to make a good, well-informed decision, that you get opinions from everybody. You know, get opinions from everybody, and read. There's many scientific studies that have been coming out here in the last few years since this has become an issue and a thing that's happening. A lot of science has been, they've been at work pretty hard trying to figure everything out. And what we're seeing mainly is that it's not good. It's not good. Gender dysphoria is a serious mental problem. It's a serious mental health issue. And it's affecting our children, people, and we got to do something about it. We, as the adults in the room, need to put our foot down and say, okay, enough's enough. These people have a legitimate mental issue. We got to help them. We got to help them. And if after trying to get them help, and they grow up and they still feel that way, well then as an adult, by God, you're free to do what you want. And I will say nothing bad towards it. You know, to each their own. Live and let live. But I just wanted to bring this up because it's something that really truly is bothering me. And it seems to be bothering a lot of people. And we just gotta figure out a way to make sense out of all this. And it's in such a nonsensical world, it's hard to make sense of anything. But I'd love to hear your comments, and as always, like, share, and subscribe. I will catch y'all on the flip side.